This is Dr. Garrett Smith, also known as the Nutrition Detective around these here YouTube parts, and we have another fun live stream for you today. Hopefully, we're going to have a special guest appearance by someone we all know and love. And today, we're going to go over how cancer accumulates or stores bile, toxic bile, because it does, and it's been known a long time. And I could go, I'm only have about 10 papers to go into today, but I want you to understand first. So very first thing, before we get into this too much, you're going to want to watch either episodes 53 or 71 of the live streams so that you understand more about toxic bile. What we used to call toxic bile theory, what I am now going to start calling toxic bile paradigm, because it is a paradigm now. It's not just, I don't believe it's just a theory. And as we keep showing all the evidence from all the different angles, it becomes a paradigm. So I'm not going to pussyfoot around it anymore. It's a paradigm. So on to the paper. So bile, again, little basics. Bile is the waste, the sewage treatment plant waste that your liver makes to get rid of it. Yes, it does have some positive functions in the body, and we're never against those. It is the way your liver gets rid of waste. The most toxic fluid in your body is bile. By definition, it's how, when you say your liver detoxes, it puts those toxins into the bile. That's how it tries to get rid of them. So if it cannot get rid of them fast enough, it actually gets reabsorbed into your system and it causes its own leaks. Kind of like, I don't know, if you had iron pipes and they got rusted through by the very water that they're designed to carry, right? So this toxic bile leaks into your bloodstream. It goes everywhere the blood goes, which is everywhere in your system. And then it causes your chronic health issues. That's like the shortest toxic bile theory or paradigm. I'm still new to it too. Summary that I could give you. Okay. Cancer is your body making specific tissues to hold this toxicity that, one, your liver can't hold anymore. Hey, do you know that today we're going to go over how the liver accumulates bile acids too? Your liver accumulates or stores toxins that it cannot get rid of fast enough, and the bile is part of this. Okay. And your body fat can't store anymore. Your body fat stores, guess what? Fat soluble toxins, like things like vitamin A, but also things like forever chemicals, the PFAS and the DDTs and the dioxins and all these you can put microplastics in your liver. You can put all these things. Your body will hold on to them. People go, well, why would the body do that? That's not very smart. Okay. You know what is smart? Is preventing you from dying from these things floating around in your blood and affecting your brain, your heart, and other things that you need to live right here, right now. So your body will, just like if you had too much work at your desk, you will just create a pile for it and say, I'll get to that later. I can't do it right now, because let's say you had too much to do right now and you got so stressed out that you couldn't do any of it. Who does that benefit? No one. So you just deal with what you can right now and you let the other stuff wait. That is what your body does with toxins. So anybody who says that the liver and the kidneys and these other organs do not, first of all, if they say they don't filter toxins, they don't understand what a filter means. Second, if they say they don't accumulate toxins, they haven't looked at the research and they don't understand that these things absolutely do happen. It's canon, it does. So let me, Bon Joe said people should start using toxic bile paradigm. Yeah, we're definitely going to do that. So yes, let me just see some of the other, let me say hi in the chat a little bit first. So Roloff, I hope I said your name right. He said, hello, Dr. Smith. You're my favorite truther doctor. Thank you for all you're doing. You are very welcome. Like I said, I don't know what I'd be doing without this. Zen Dog, also known as Jojo. He got seconds. He got secondies. Let's see. Yeah, Christine said no more putting around. Yeah, we're not going to. We are just here to change things. Oh, and then here's the other thing. What you're going to see in this bile in regards to cancer is you're going to see that it's the first paper that I go through. They're like, this has been known for a very long time. And you go, wait, nobody's talking about bile and cancer. Nobody. And then let me tell you what is going to happen. It's already happening. You're going to see in the medical research, they're going to start saying, oh, well, in this disease, you have less of this bile acid. Oh, and in this disease, you have more of this bile acid. And they're going to start trying to convince you that when they find bile acid in places like cancer, they're going to be like, well, that's one paper I'm going to go over. Oh, and these breast cancers that propagated less fast, they had more of this bile acid. And they're going to try to play it off as a good thing. Why is there bile in a breast cancer tumor? How did it get there? So then they're going to try to play it off like, oh, we can just manipulate the bile to make things better, and it's not going to work. UDCA doesn't work. Long-term TUDCA doesn't really work. Giving bile to solve a bile problem long-term doesn't work. Short-term, what they do is they change the recipe of the bile. So when you see anything in this research where they say, well, this bile acid was higher in less bad cases and this bile acid was lower, they're telling you that the recipe of the bile, what's in the research is called the composition, changes the disease. Okay. I'm going to give you the old flour, sugar. I'm going to use eggs in this flour, sugar, eggs, and salt recipe idea, right? You can take those 4 ingredients and use them in different proportions and in different ways to make all sorts of different end products. They're all sort of the same, but you can make very different end products with them. All you changed was the recipe and then possibly how you made them, right? But that's the bile acid composition. So you can change the outcome by changing the recipe. Okay. Then there's also how much. So like if you wanted to make twice as much of a recipe, you put in twice as much of the ingredients. If making the recipe was a problem, you put in twice as much, you're going to have twice the problem. Does that make sense? Dose dependent. The more of something you have, the more of something you're going to get. So let's get into it. Oh, Baptized in Fire said, I'm shocked by how much better soluble fiber is over charcoal at sucking up the poisons. I finally feel a bit better due to fiber. Crazy. Okay. This is I just want to hit on this real quick. Different so think about this. I just said different recipes of bile toxicity create different problems. Different bile binders have different properties. They'll bind to certain toxins in the bile better and certain ones not as good. And depending upon what you have, different ones may help you feel better. This is a very important thing. Like if somebody said, well, doc, I can take sun fiber, but oh my gosh, I can't take any oats. I can't take any beans. I can't do psyllium. Or like, okay, do what works. Charcoal is amazing. I took tons of charcoal for a period, and nowadays I just don't feel like charcoal feels that great in my system, so I don't do it much. The new secret supplement that we're using, that seems to be doing well with pretty much everybody. Soluble fiber is something that we can get in our daily food, and it can still be overdone. One of the things about soluble fiber is it does tend to what we call trigger a bile dump. So then you might, if you're leaking a lot, you trigger a bile dump and it leaks, then you may feel worse if you get too much. There's probably a sweet spot where you feel better from it, and there's a too much spot where you're just taking too much. Okay. So let's get into these papers. Okay. Joe, we got it on the screen now? Yeah, there we go. Look at this title, Bile Acids as Possible Human Carcinogens. New tricks from an old dog. And then you get the people who are like, but why would the body make something that's carcinogenic? Your body is making what it would love to be a waste product that still has purposes along the way. Okay? It can be a waste product and it can still serve purposes along the way. As an example, what is SIBO? SIBO, small intestinal bowel overgrowth, is not enough bile in your intestines. Where it comes out of the liver into the small intestine, there's not enough coming there. So the wrong type of bacteria overgrow and you get problems. How did they create SIBO in dogs? They just tied off their common bile duct. So no bile went down to their intestines, and then they created small intestinal bowel overgrowth. Is small intestinal bowel overgrowth a deficiency of antibiotics? No, it's not. It is not enough bile going in your intestines. Well, then you go, well, where's the bile going? if it's not going into the intestines. It's going into your bloodstream instead, or it's getting stored in your liver. Okay. So let's head into this. So new tricks from an old dog. Wow, it's like they've known about this for a while. This is 2009. So if they're coming out with this in 2009, why are we 15, 16 years later and still not hearing about it? Here we go. Bile first attracted man's interest long ago. The actual tumor promoting effects of a bile acid were reported in 1939 for deoxycholic acid. Tumor promoting effects of bile in 1939. Ever since, much evidence, not a little bit of evidence, but much evidence has accumulated, love that word, that supports an important role for bile acids as cancer promoters in humans through DNA damage and selection for apoptosis resistant cells, both of which can lead to increased mutation rates. Or we could say cancer is toxicity storage, and the more toxic bile you have floating around your blood, the more toxin storage tissue your body makes. And therefore, what do they call it? Increased mutation rates. The evidence reviewed here indicates that in humans, bile acids are likely to be implicated in the etiology, that's the cause of, the root cause of a number of different important cancers in terms of morbidity and mortality, that's death, such as cancer of the colon, esophagus, stomach, pancreas, gallbladder, and cancer of the breast. Likely to be implicated as the root cause of a number of different cancers. So here's going to be the weird thing. Toxic bile is associated with increasing cancer. And as you're going to see more bile in the tumors. The tumor, the cancer is being made to store the bile, to get it out of your system, or else it will kill you another way. Cancer is a defense mechanism by your body. What do they want you to think? They want you to think that we are having a war on cancer. You are having a war on your body. No. Your body is trying to save you from quick death by doing the slow death, which is storing toxins in specifically, this is why they call cancer like dumb tissue. Cancer is dumb tissue, like a storage unit is like a dumb house. A storage unit is made for storage. That's why it doesn't have a sink and a bathroom and a master suite. And it's one room with a door. It's a room with a door for storing stuff. Your body makes cancer tissues as dumb storage for toxins. You could call it smart storage. It's saving your life. Okay, so 1939, they've known about this. I need to get this article because I need to, the whole article, because I'd love to go through all the links of the much evidence, see what else they have other than what I've found. Okay, next one. Let me get this link. And we'll come down here. Wow, this is weird. Look at the title. Toxins are linked to cancer of the bile duct. Wow, this was 22 years ago. What does the bile duct carry first? Where would the most concentrated toxic bile hit first? Your bile ducts. Okay. So, the first study to test for DNA adducts. These are things that adduct means binds to. They bind together. They're added. The first study to test for DNA adducts as a marker for intrahepatic, within the liver, cancer of the bile ducts. So these are inside the liver bile ducts. This would be, folks, for those of you who understand cholestasis, and you've been here a while, intrahepatic cholestasis means toxic bile leaking out from inside the liver. Either the liver cells themselves are leaking bile, or the little teeny tiny bile ducts, think like capillaries in terms of blood vessels, but these are little teeny tiny bile ducts. These are leaking directly, and they are leaking the bile directly into the blood. So just think of the liver as just, if you're looking at the liver itself is just leaking out bile. It's not getting into the bile duct. Okay? So Let me read that again. The first study to test for DNA adducts as a marker for intrahepatic cancer of the bile duct, so the little bile ducts in the liver getting cancer, has lent more support to the hypothesis that toxins damaging DNA can lead to cancer. Or is it toxins in the body signaling the body to change itself to make more toxin storage? Right? They want you to be a victim of cancer instead of the creator of it, because if you're the creator of cancer, you can uncreate it. Greater exposure to environmental toxins may explain the rapid rise in deaths from this cancer in Western countries over the past 30 years, suggest the authors. Wow, so this was written in 2003, and they're saying in the last 30 years. Hey, do you know what came out in the 70s that not only inhibits vitamin A detoxification, but it also chelates good minerals out of you like crazy, and that everybody started eating a ton of, and a lot of the major health issues we have today started in the 70s, the late 70s. They really started peaking. Oh, that's glyphosate. So let's go into this. Patients with the cancer had more DNA adducts in samples of their tumor or adjacent to their tumor than patients without the tumor. The pattern and density of DNA adducts differed between tumor DNA and tumor-adjacent DNA, and between each of these and non-cancer DNA. So they found differences in the number of these adducts. Okay. DNA adducts are modified DNA bases formed when electrophilic, that means they like carcinogens and their metabolites bind to DNA. Their electrophilic is like, let me just get the specific definition so we can all have it. Philic always means loving or attracted to. I just want to make sure it wasn't okay. Of or relating to an electrophile, electron deficient. So electrophilic means that it's electron deficient. It wants electrons. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I just didn't want to dive into that too much. Oh, sorry. Here's electrophilic. Of or relating to an electrophile, as in electron deficient. That's why it likes electrons. Okay. So, yeah, with chemistry stuff like this, I do like to make sure I have the very specific definition. So electrophilic, they're lacking an electron, and they're carcinogens, or their metabolites bind to DNA. So DNA adducts, carcinogens, or their metabolites bind to DNA, that they're added together. They are key to chemically induced mutagenesis, mutations, through misrepair, poor repair, or absence of repair, and are markers for chemical mutagenesis, but not yet. But not up to this point in bile duct tissue, even though the liver and biliary system metabolize carcinogens. So they hadn't linked this to bile duct stuff, even though they know that the liver and the bile system metabolize carcinogens. Intrahepatic liver, within the liver, bile duct cancer is the second commonest liver cancer worldwide, but the cause of its prominence is unknown. Well, toxins and bile. Gosh, what would cause cancer in the bile duct? Okay, so now let's take a second. You guys just read that title for a second. I'm going to answer Bon Joe's question. If chole is bile, yeah, CHOLE is bile, and then calling it cholecalciferol, is that just them taking the piss? No, cholecalciferol. So chola is bile, calci is calcium, all is an alcohol. Bile-related, calcium-related alcohol. Interesting, right? But let's just look at the title of this paper. Liver and microbiome-derived bile acids. Here is the key word. Accumulate in human breast tumors and inhibit growth and improve patient survival. They're going to try to tell you, you're going to see that they accumulate. You're going to be like, why is there a breast cancer tumor that's accumulating bile acids? And you're not supposed to have breast cancer and you're not supposed to be accumulating bile acids, but they're going to say It inhibits growth and improves patient survival. This is the gaslighting they're going to do, folks. It's already started. And look, 2019, recent. Liver bile acids accumulate in human breast tumors. Well, how'd they get there? They won't talk about this. How would liver-produced bile acids get into human breast tumors? How would microbiome secondary bile acids, which are known to be the most toxic bile acids, they are made by your gut bacteria, that's the microbiome. How would they get into the blood to get to the breast? Well, they would have to leak. So what they're trying to say here in this title is they're trying to say, oh, these bile acids from your liver and your gut leaking into your bloodstream and accumulating in breast cancer tissue are good for it. Or it means that if you have more of this one type, your breast cancer is not as bad. This is their gaslighting. Absolute quantification of 4 bile acids. There are at least 56 different bile acids, including glycodeoxycholate and microbiome-derived deoxycholate corroborated the accumulation of bile acids in breast tumors. Do we want breast tumors? No. Is accumulating what? Are breast tumors protecting you by accumulating bile acids so that they don't float around in your system? Yes. So think about this. Let's just say if a breast tumor was able to accumulate a specific bile acid and take it out of your blood, that they actually saw improved survival. Do you see how the storage thing is protecting you? Moreover, tumor levels of these bile acids markedly correlated with metabolites in the steroid metabolism pathway and increased expression of key genes in this pathway, suggesting that bile acids may interfere with hormonal pathways in the breast. We describe the unexpected accumulation of liver and microbiome-derived bile acids in breast tumors. So they're saying if they see certain increased bile acids in the breast cancer tissue, they fall into a better prognosis category. It doesn't mean they're not going to have a problem. It just means they have less of a problem while they're still accumulating bile acids in their tumors. Remember, the recipe is important. So, next one. Can bile acids be an etiological, a causal factor for laryngeal carcinoma? That's your throat. That's cancer of the throat, basically. Okay, your larynx. The objective of this study is to show the accumulation of bile acids in laryngeal tissues of laryngeal carcinoma patients. So that's how would you get bile acids in your larynx? Well, maybe you might want to go watch my GERD and bile reflux episode because your reflux problems are bile going into your throat. Gosh, how would bile get to a place of the larynx, part of your throat? Probably up through your digestive system, which is where your liver dumps the bile via the common bile duct into your intestines. The bile can, for whatever reason, however it happens, it goes back up into your stomach, and then it can come up into your throat. This is like that silent cough thing where people often they have a cough for a long time and nothing works on it. They can't figure it out until they finally figure out it's reflux. But they can't. They're like, I don't taste acid. I don't feel like I have heartburn. I don't seem to have all these reflux problems, but I just have this cough. And then they try some heartburn, and then all of a sudden it goes away. Okay, the total bile acid level was significantly higher in the tumor and hypopharyngeal tissues of the study group than in the hypopharyngeal tissues of the control group. However, the difference in the blood total bile acid level between the two groups was not significant. Gosh, what do you think the tumors were doing for the bile in the blood? Do you think they were taking it out of the blood and putting it into the tumor, and so the blood stayed the same of the two groups? Do you see how these things are trying to protect you? But it still has to make tissue to hold it. Bile acids in reflux material accumulate in the laryngeal tissue in laryngeal carcinoma patients. Therefore, bile acids should be considered a carcinogenic factor in the etiology, the cause of laryngeal carcinoma, because of their mutagenicity due to DNA breaking, as they cause chronic inflammation due to intracellular inside the cell accumulation. Wow. Okay, so accumulation of bile acids causing mutagenicity and DNA breaking and all this stuff. Or it's just making the body make cancer tissue. Okay. Bile acid synthesis impedes or gets in the way of tumor-specific T cell responses during liver cancer. We found that accumulation of primary conjugated and secondary bile acids, the most toxic, are metabolic features. Wait, it's a feature, not a bug. Are metabolic features of human hepatocellular, that's liver cell cancer, and experimental liver cancer models. The accumulation of bile acids is a feature. So do you see, if I'm saying that cancer is a toxicity storage creation tissue, your body is creating this tissue to store toxicity. And they're saying the accumulation of bile acids is a metabolic feature of cancer. It's trying to protect you, folks. You don't want to go to war against it. You're going to war against your own cells that are being made to protect you. If you haven't figured out that this ivermectin and fenbendazole is a bunch of BS garbage yet, folks, all they're trying to do is shut down your bile production by using insecticides, basically. And it's going to end. What you're going to see, we're already seeing doctors reporting that people who go down this ivermectin and fenbendazole rabbit hole are dying. And we don't see real people saying that they're out there having this cured. I've seen several posts on Twitter now of doctors saying, yeah, I watched several people go down this rabbit hole and they're all dead. So don't believe things you see on social media of people saying, I have a friend of a friend who, or influencers who are trying to get you to take pharma cartel stuff. Okay. Oh, Baptized in Fire. This is great. So Baptized in Fire says he's an undertype and he finally started gaining weight. He's up 12 pounds. Okay, so let's just cover this real quick. Undertypes are typically underweight. When we look at their labs, they typically are low on lab values in general. It's just a pattern. It's just a trend. It's not every lab. It's just a trend. Oftentimes, these underweight folks have extreme difficulty with gaining any weight because, well, the reason why is not quite understood, but they're just the type that they cannot gain weight. And what we have seen is, as we are working on their liver, I do believe it's liver-based, and it may be that the bile is not making it. It's one theory by a watcher, I forget who it was, a viewer, said that maybe the bile is just not going into their intestines very well. It's going what's called intrahepatic. It's leaking directly into their blood, and so they're not absorbing as many nutrients that would help them gain weight as they were before. And so they can't gain weight. Is that true? I don't know. It's just a theory. But is it possible? Sure. As we fix the liver and the leaky bile, and the bile goes where it's supposed to, and the liver starts healing itself, then people start gaining weight easily when they never could, or when some of you undertypes know what I'm talking about. People used to have to eat there's some of these undertypes, they're like 4,000, 5,000 calories a day to gain a couple pounds. Just to gain a couple pounds. And if they stop eating that much, they very quickly lose it. Okay? And think about that. Undertypes, in my opinion, their liver is in a worse state. This is not a judgment. This is just my perception. Undertypes, their liver is in a worse state than overtypes. Overtypes are the overweight types. At least the overweight types, to their benefit, are able to make body fat to store this extra toxicity. The undertypes obviously aren't making body fat. They aren't making a whole lot of tissue. So they just have more stuff floating around in their bloodstream. Anyway, But yeah, Baptized in Fire said what he added to get this result was the soluble fiber. Yeah, so see, soluble fiber is a big part of this. We are omnivores, folks. We are not pure vegans. We are not pure carnivores. We are omnivores. We are designed to be omnivores. If you just look at our teeth, we are designed to be omnivores. I don't know why you get those people out on the internet who are like, look at all these reasons why humans should only eat plants. And then you got the carnivores. Look at all these reasons why humans should only eat meat. And I go, well, you guys are both right. So aren't we omnivores? Isn't that why we kind of dominate the planet? Because we can eat just about anything out there. That doesn't mean everything's good for us. Can we get away with surviving on just about everything out there? Yeah. Okay. So let's keep going. But that's great, Baptized in Fire. That's amazing. That is what we're after. This is like when we fix, people who have been anemic or low ferritin their entire life without ever having to really have them take iron because their problem was in the liver. So, bile acid metabolism and signaling in cholestasis. Cholestasis means leaking toxic bile into your bloodstream, basically. Inflammation and cancer. Wow, that's weird that bile acid metabolism will be linked to toxic leaky bile, inflammation, and cancer. In cholestasis, toxic. So this is interesting. In cholestasis, toxic leaky bile, impaired bile flow leads to accumulation of bile acids in the liver, causing hepatocyte, liver cell, and biliary injury and inflammation. So the liver cells that make bile can and are damaged by bile. And the bile ducts that are designed to carry bile are injured by the bile. And the liver can accumulate bile acids. Bile is a fatty type of substance, right? It's related to fats. Fatty liver is a bunch of fat accumulation in the liver. If the body wanted to store bile, what would it probably store it with? Oh, I don't know, fat. Chronic cholestasis is associated with fibrosis, cirrhosis, and eventually liver failure. Chronic cholestasis also increases the risk of developing hepatocellular, liver cell, or cholangiocellular bile duct cell carcinomas. I don't know if I have anything else in this one. I don't think I had anything else in this one. I just wanted that one. Okay. Another one. Co-carcinogenic effects of intrahepatic within the liver bile acid accumulation in cholangiocarcinoma development. So people sometimes wonder, like, where do I have all this bile to do these bile dumps from? Like, where does it all come from? Well, your liver may have been storing it. Like it stores toxins and then they come out in bursts. Bile. Okay, so people always want to know, what blood tests can I do to figure out if I'm leaking toxic bile into my bloodstream? And I say, you can't rely on blood tests. It's not that if you have ever had a high total bile acid or a high bile acid number or a high bilirubin or any high liver enzymes, any liver enzymes that are high, those are all indicators of basically liver damage and cholestasis. Okay? Toxic leaky bile. It's in the research. Do you have to have had those levels out of range for you to have a problem? No. This is like, do you have to have high vitamin A in your blood to have vitamin A toxicity in your liver? No. This is exactly what you're going to see here. Bile acid accumulation in the liver with cholangiolar, that's related to the bile ducts, neoplastic lesions. This is cancer of the bile ducts. Bile acid accumulation in the liver with bile duct cancers may occur before cholestasis is clinically detected. They're saying you could full on have a ton of bile in your liver and bile duct cancer before modern medicine could tell you that you're leaking toxic bile. This is just like vitamin A toxicity, where they're like, oh, your vitamin A in your blood is fine. You must not have vitamin A toxicity. No. You can be accumulating stuff in your liver and ruining your bile ducts long before they find a problem in your blood. Okay? In conclusion, intrahepatic, within the liver accumulation of bile acids does not induce carcinogenesis directly, but facilitates or makes easier a co-carcinogenic effect due to a stimulation of bile duct proliferation, enhanced inflammation, and reduction in FXR-dependent chemoprotection. Now are they trying to say that your own bile is like chemotherapy? Oh, let's call a spade, folks. Treating cancer, just back to that ivermectin and fenben thing. Treating cancer with drugs is chemotherapy. Treating cancer with drugs is chemotherapy. Therefore, ivermectin and fenben are absolutely chemotherapy. They're not chemotherapy. The definition of chemotherapy is treating cancer with drugs. So you're just taking chemo, just a different type. Yeah, bile acids foster co-carcinogenic events that impact cholangiocarcinoma. Remember, the bile ducts are designed for bile. So if they're falling apart, imagine how much more of you is falling apart. Okay, next one. Oh, actually, here I am. If I just saw a little bit of this in the chat. Here I am. If you're looking for it, down in the show notes underneath the video, there's a link to the transcripts from all the live streams. I don't know if it's all the videos on the channel, but it's got the live streams for sure. And you can search the live streams by keyword. So if you're looking for a certain keyword, you can find that link. It's the first link down in the info, and that can help you to find it. So bile acid-induced cell injury and protection. So let's go into this. Several studies have characterized the cellular and molecular mechanisms of hepatocyte liver cell injury caused by the retention of hydrophobic bile acids in cholestatic disease. So if it's hydrophobic, it tends to mean it is if water fearing, or it doesn't like water. So you could tend to think that that's fat soluble then. So if something doesn't like water, generally, like when you hear about water soluble things and fat soluble things. So if something is hydrophobic, it doesn't like water, it will tend to be fat, lipophilic, as in fat loving. Gosh. If it accumulated in your liver and it's fat loving, what would also accumulate in your liver? Most likely to store it. Fatty liver. Okay. Bile acids may disrupt cell membranes through their detergent action on lipid components and can promote the generation of reactive oxygen species that in turn oxidatively modify lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids and eventually cause liver cell death and basically self-destruction. That's weird that bile acids would cause the liver cells to basically waste away and die or basically explode. Programmed cell death. Several pathways are involved in triggering hepatocyte apoptosis. Toxic bile acids. Wow, that's a term. Toxic bile acids can activate hepatocyte death receptors. Wait, the liver cells make bile. Are they trying to commit suicide, or is it that the toxic bile acids are just too toxic for the cells? The toxic bile acids can activate hepatocyte death receptors directly and induce oxidative damage, thereby causing mitochondrial dysfunction. For those of you who are concerned about your mitochondria problem is caused by toxicities and deficiencies and too much toxic bile being where it's not supposed to be, and induce endoplasmic reticulum stress. When these compounds are taken up and accumulate inside biliary cells, bile-producing cells. They may mean bile duct cells, but they may just mean bile-related cells. Anyway, they can cause apoptosis, programmed cell death. That would be like, oh, hepatocyte death receptors, programmed cell death. Regarding extrahepatic tissues, this is all the tissues around that are not the liver. Extrahepatic means basically not the liver. The accumulation of bile acids in the systemic circulation may contribute to endothelial injury in the kidneys and lungs. Gosh, do you remember that thing called the coof, where people were having all sorts of weird problems showing up in their lungs? Gosh, leaking toxic bile can cause lung injury and kidney injury. What did Grant Jenner do by avoiding vitamin A or minimizing it? He fixed his chronic kidney disease. And then he's got another person who also fixed theirs now. In gastrointestinal cells, bile acids may behave as cancer promoters through an indirect mechanism involving oxidative stress and DNA damage, as well as acting as selection agents for apoptosis-resistant cells. Maybe you were born with health problems. The accumulation of bile acids may have also deleterious or bad effects on placental and fetal cells. Wow, this is pretty bad. And everybody on the internet is just like, bile is good, and you want to thin your bile, and you want to push out more bile, and take these herbs for bile. And no. We need bile for several functions. We want the bile to stay in the liver, the bile ducts, the intestines, and be pooped out. And if anything, if it's going to come back to the liver, you want it to stay in what's called the enterohepatic circulation, which is a closed loop. You do not want bile leaking into your bloodstream. Look at all of this stuff. It's even destroying the liver that makes it. Down there, they try to gaslight some and be like, oh, UDCA's good for this. No, UDCA, I can show you long-term, UDCA just destroys everything too. So I think I've been over that paper before. I know I have. Deregulated bile acids may drive hepatocellular carcinoma metastasis. Oh, the spreading. Wait, deregulated bile acids may drive the spreading of tumors by inducing an immunosuppressive microenvironment. Okay, let's cover this. Your immune system is a cleanup crew. It's not an army fighting things so much. It's a cleanup crew. So imagine this. Let's say you have, I don't know. We have a pretty good example of fires happening recently. Let's say you have a house fire and the firefighters mobilize and they send plenty of fire trucks and firefighters, and they've got hydrants that are working, and they've got water, and they block off the street. And what you would see, so think about it in your blood test, if you're thinking of white blood cells, think of the fire as toxicity, okay? If you have a single toxin exposure event and your immune system is in good shape, it's not too toxic, it can respond, and it will acutely respond with vigor. So you might see on a blood test, when you see white blood cells go up, that means you had an acute toxin exposure that your immune system, your cleanup crew, was able to respond to. Just like a fire, if all the firefighters are not busy doing other things, like they will send as many firefighters to the fire as they need to put it out. Acute toxin exposure, we see a rise in the cleanup crew. Whereas let's just say there was too much toxin exposure over too long a time, like too many houses are all burning at once. And the fire department, which has been made more toxic over time, has fewer firefighters. It doesn't have the water supply it needs. People are quitting or being fired because they won't put toxic pokies in themselves. And then you have this giant fire and it's burning, it's causing problems, but you don't have the response. This is like autoimmune disease, where you see low white blood cells, you see low immune response because the chronic toxicity and the chronic stress has made it so it can't respond anymore as well as it should. So that's the difference. Like whenever there was, people will say, well, I got this infection, then afterwards I got really sick and I had high white blood cells at the start, but then I got low white blood cells over time. This is toxicity. This is how it works. Metastasis of cancer is the spreading of toxicity in your body and your body saying, we need to make more toxin storage tissue because we're already really, really toxic and our cleanup crew is overwhelmed. It's not suppressing anything. Remember, modern medicine has to turn it into a war. They have to turn it into a victim mentality. They have to turn it into a war. That's what they do. It's easier for people to think about it this way because then they feel like they can focus better. People don't like taking accountability and responsibility. Okay. Bile acids are physiological detergents that can not only promote the digestion and absorption of lipids. Okay, so remember, this is the gaslighting. They always have to tell you the good things about something before they're about to tell you the bad things. They want to be like, well, bile is good and necessary. And yeah, we're about to tell you some nasty stuff about it. They do the same thing with vitamin A. Every vitamin A is bad study will come out and say, vitamin A is necessary for your eyes and and you need it and it's necessary. And we don't want to speak badly of it, but like you should see Mike Roberto's Microberto, Microberto on Twitter. They just came out with a new research with RBP4, retinol binding protein 4, which your body only makes in response to vitamin A being present. All of the hypothyroid people in the study had higher levels of RBP4 than the people without thyroid problems. Your hypothyroid problems are vitamin A toxicity problems and bile leaking into your blood. I showed in another live stream about how the bile recipe in the blood of different thyroid conditions is different. It's the same for certain conditions, and it's different for the different conditions. Okay? The accumulation of bile acids in the body. Oh, wait. We're not just talking about one place now. The accumulation of bile acids in the body can lead to cholestatic liver cirrhosis. So bile acids destroy the liver and even liver cancer. Recently, studies demonstrated that bile acids are highly accumulated in metastatic lymph nodes, but not in normal healthy lymph nodes or primary tumors. Like so breast cancer tends to spread to the lymph nodes. Wow. They take biopsies of breast tumors and then they leak. And then the leakage of the toxins goes into the lymph nodes. And we see that bile acids are highly accumulated in metastatic lymph nodes, but not in normal healthy lymph nodes or primary tumors. They're spreading the cancer by their biopsies, folks. The survival and prognosis of hepatocellular carcinoma patients, liver cell cancer, patients with lymph node metastasis are significantly worse than those without lymph node metastasis. Meanwhile, components of bile acids was found to significantly enhance the invasive potential of hepatocellular carcinoma cells. Based on these available evidence, we hypothesize that a combination of genetic and epigenetic factors in cancerous liver tissue, yeah, right, we're going to blame genetics again, inhibits the uptake and stimulates the synthesis of bile acids by the liver, and excess bile acids further promote liver carcinogenesis and HCC metastasis by inducing immunosuppressive environment. Excess bile acids further promote liver cancer. Well, because the liver can't store anymore. The liver is so overwhelmed with toxicity, the liver is even having to make more tissue. You understand how bad this situation is? Bile acids promote the development of hepatocellular carcinoma by activating the inflammasome. Now, we've been over inflammasome before. Let me just remind everyone. Ooh, wait. I'll show it in a sec, Joe. Inflammasomes are cytosolic, so that's in the cytosol, multi-protein complexes of the innate immune system responsible for the activation of inflammatory responses and cell death. That helps, right? It's like when people are like, inflammation is the cause of disease, and you go, okay, well, let's treat this like a 5-year-old. What causes inflammation? They're like, so many things. And then they're like, gluten. No. Bile is a major cause of it, and all the toxic things that it has in it. So let's go back to here. In a cell study, in vitro, chenodeoxycholic acid significantly promoted the malignant or the spreading transformation of liver cells, activated the inflammasome. A bile acid activated the inflammasome by triggering the release of mitochondrial reactive oxygen species and mitochondrial DNA. The release of mitochondrial DNA? Or do you mean that, like, this bile acid was bursting open the cells and it's spilling out? In conclusion, we found that CDCA can trigger the excessive accumulation, there is that word again, mitochondrial reactive oxygen species by targeting HO1 to promote the activation of the inflammasome and ultimately promote the progression of hepatocellular carcinoma. Our study provides a novel mechanism by which bile acids promote hepatocellular cancer by activating the inflammasome and establishes the important role of bile acid homeostasis imbalance in the progression of HCC from the aspect of inflammation. Whenever you see the words homeostasis, folks, or signaling, oftentimes, more often than not, it's a way that they are trying to hide saying the toxicity of. There's dumbasses out there trying to debunk vitamin A toxicity by talking about vitamin A homeostasis, and we need to restore our vitamin A metabolic pathways, and we need vitamin A signaling, and they are so desperate to hang on to the fact that everything they learned, I'm taking apart and it's working. They're just desperate. They start to see that vitamin A is toxic, but then they go, oh, you just need to metabolize it better. And it's like, that would be called detoxing, dumbass. Bile acids in cancer. Direct and environmental dependent effects. This is the last paper for today. So again, we have to gaslight. We have to say all the good things that bile acids do first before we get into how bad it is. So just remember, this pattern's everywhere. Every vitamin A paper that shows that it's bad. Vitamin A is good and necessary, and here's how bad it is. Bile acids are good and necessary, and here's how bad they are when they're in your blood. Bile acids regulate the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, so they're absorbed with fat. So folks, if you think taking more fat is the way to pump out more bile, no, taking more fat is the way to absorb more bile, because the bile and the fat get absorbed together. You understand? How does the bile help you absorb fat if it doesn't go in with it? Why would you need bile there to absorb fat? A standard American diet is reabsorbing 95% of the bile, they say, through the gut. So you're only pooping out 5% of it. So if you are really toxic, you're not getting there. If you decided to do, if you were like some certain people out on the internet who are carnivores, pure muscle meat carnivores, that think that reabsorbing all that bile is good and you don't want to have any fiber, and I'm sorry, they're wrong. They're going to pay the price. Their behavior shows that they're very angry, which means their liver is not doing well. Okay. Regulate the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, cholesterol, which our liver makes for us. We don't need to eat it. And lipids, but also have a key role as signaling molecules. Do you see that word again? Signaling. Homeostasis, signaling. You're going to see these words over and over. And in the modulation of epithelial cell proliferation, gene expression, and metabolism. These homeostatic pathways, signaling, homeostatic, these homeostatic pathways, when disrupted. Okay, so they were good. They were good until you messed it up. And once you mess it up, they turn bad. They are able to promote local inflammation, systemic metabolic disorders, and ultimately cancer. The effect of hydrophobic bile acids, as in fat-loving, so hydrophobic, water-fearing, which means fat-loving, basically, bile acids in particular. The effect of hydrophobic bile acids in particular, once you mess up your homeostatic signaling pathway, can be linked with cancer in several digestive cancers: esophagus, stomach, liver, pancreas, biliary tract, colon, and extra digestive organs, i.e. prostate and breast, through a complex series of mechanisms, including direct oxidative stress with DNA damage, apoptosis, epigenetic. Is apoptosis good in cancer or not? Wait, huh? They can't seem to decide. Epigenetic factors regulating gene expression, increased expression of nuclear receptors, mainly FXR, and altered composition of gut microbiota, also acting as a common interface between environmental factors, including diet, lifestyle, exposure to toxins. Gosh, what do we do here to help people get better? Diet, lifestyle, and exposure to toxins, and the molecular events promoting cancerogenesis. I think they mean carcinogenesis, but maybe they just want to use a different word. Cancerogenesis. What are the primary prevention strategies? You may find this familiar. Changes in dietary habits and lifestyle. Reduced exposure to environmental toxins. Mainly able to modulate gut microbiota and the epigenome. Well, what you feed your microbiome is what either grows it in a good way or grows it in a bad way. What is going into your microbiome multiple times a day, every time you eat and other times as well? Your bile. There are bile-resistant bacteria in your gut where they can survive really high levels of bile. There are bacteria in your gut that are not bile-resistant. So as the bile becomes more toxic or a different recipe, they die very quickly. If you don't feed your gut carbohydrates or fiber, your bifidobacteria die off, and then you are guaranteed dysbiosis. Which is probably why lots of all muscle meat carnivores who have been doing it a long time, they come back and they try to eat carbs, which start feeding gut bacteria, both good and bad, and then they have such problems. And they get wrecked for 3 days by eating an apple. That is not resilience, folks. Getting wrecked for 3 days by eating an apple is not a sign of health. So just again, I just want to point out here that they'll always say the good stuff, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, when you mess up this stuff, when you mess up your vitamin A metabolism, when you mess up your bile metabolism, then all of a sudden, oh, cancer, local inflammation, systemic metabolic disorders, which just means systemic inflammation, and cancer. Okay. I'm all done with that. That's enough of that for today. So, cancer accumulates bile. Hope you've seen that. The liver accumulates bile. I would actually, you know what? Maybe I'll do a quick search. Let me do something. Will, you might have found this before. Didn't we find that I know there is bile in the bilious people. Yes, people who are full of bile. Joe said, Zendog said, bilious people suck. That bilious is full of bile. And it's a sign that their liver's not doing well because they have too much bile leaking in their blood. Think about how long ago they made up this term. A very long time. Wait, let me see this. Yeah, let's just so I want to see they're gonna poison you, folks. Chenodeoxycholic acid loaded nanoparticles are sufficient to decrease adipocyte fat cell size by inducing mitochondrial function. They're trying to study injecting, I'm pretty sure this is injecting nanoparticles with bile acids in them to help people lose fat. So you're going to start seeing, there's going to be people out there being like, toxic bile paradigm is all wrong. Look at, we give people bile to do this. I'm so sick of the ivermectin and fenben thing. Because I'm like, oh, you mean giving people drugs has shrunk their tumors in the past and they've come back bigger and faster and stronger and more in the future? You don't think we've done this before? So now they're going to be like, oh, we're going to inject bile into people because it's a natural emulsifier. You're not supposed to have, I think they talked about, double chin. You're not supposed to have a double chin, okay? But you're also not supposed to have bile in your double chin. So these are these small studies that they do. A single injection of CDCA-loaded nanoparticles into the subcutaneous fat reduced the adipocyte size by promoting fat burning and mitochondrial respiration, highlighting their potential for submental fat reduction. Okay, duration paradox here, folks. You're going to see it in the short term do a little work, and then long term, it's going to cause problems. Why do you want bile in your chin fat? It's not supposed to be there. We just saw that cancer accumulates bile acids in it. I didn't find anything on, I know I've seen it before. Joe, Will, if you have any papers that you know of that are easy to find on bile accumulating in body fat, let me know. We know that in cirrhosis, they're accumulating bile in the liver. Like, we already know this. I just don't know if we have any studies directly showing bile accumulation in body fat. I may have found it in the past. I don't remember. Okay. Will said he doesn't know of anything specifically. Yeah. We're just going to leave that alone. Maybe I'll do that in the future. Will says he thinks I found it a while ago. Sometimes it's like I found so much stuff that I forget what I found in the past. It's, yeah. Oh, wait. Hold on. Let me see what I got here before I... Joe went and used the... Oh, my gosh. Oh, Joe found a general overview in bile acids as signaling molecules. Yeah. Signaling. Yeah, we're going to be done with searching for that today. Okay, so let me get back in here. Okay, so we have one. So now we're going to get to, I have a half hour left. I have to take Kelsey to the airport today. So I have to be done on time. So anyway, Will gave a super chat and he said, soft requesting an estrogen dominance live stream. Can help with the research if needed. We'll be writing on it soon. Sure, yeah, we could do that. Will, we can look at estrogen and Mike Roberto on if you want to follow somebody who's posting like a really good study daily, follow Mike Roberto on Twitter. He just posted the other day, I think it was in China, where they found that the higher the vitamin A in people, the more girls they were having. And then that goes along with the vitamin A study that I found, where they gave mice, the mice moms, they poisoned them with vitamin A. They were pregnant. And then in the male babies, the male baby mice, when they came out, they had ovarian tissue inside their testicles. So do you see more girls being born? Ovarian tissue inside the testicles. Do you see that it's actually changing people? And it's getting handed down. Toxicity and deficiencies are handed down. This is the evidence right here. We can see it. Actually, we'll do stuff. We'll look for the estrogen parts of it. I remember, I think it was Master John was like, copper and vitamin A are not estrogenic, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, dude, you're estrogenic enough. Just stop it. But yeah, we can go into estrogen. We can go into progesterone, like the progesterone deficiency. Progesterone accumulates in your fat tissues, folks. If you're taking progesterone and you're taking more than your body can get rid of, you may feel better on it. You may have been duped by Ray Pete and the influencers out there. You are accumulating progesterone in your tissues. Go look up progesterone toxicity. It's a real thing. You accumulate progesterone in your fat, and then once you stop, you're going to have to wait. If you get problems and you realize your problems are from the progesterone, you're going to have to wait until your body can clear that out before your symptoms are going to get better. So you may not get better right away. Like we talk about here, it's a marathon, not a sprint when you accumulate toxicity. So yes, while we're here, I got another super chat, but let's say hi to our special guest. Come here. So Kelsey is visiting me. I wanted her to come on and say hi. So
hi, everybody.
Yeah, we had a good little 5 days together. I'm taking her back to the airport. She's going to go back to Idaho today. We talked about new formulas of hers that we're going to make. And
can I show my soap?
Oh, sure. Go get it. Yeah. She's been working on soaps, and yeah, this is some of you may put this together. This is the soap with the secret ingredient in it. So that's what the color is. Yeah, it'll be fun. So thanks for saying hi, babe. Okay. We'll see you in a bit. So Laura Lee said hi, Kelsey. Oh, hi. So hi, Laura. Or Laura Lee, sorry, I'll say both. Will, Nia soap. We're working on it. We are working on it. So Laura Lee wants some of the soap, babe. Okay, so let me get to the super chats now that we're back on track. But yeah, Kelsey and I went out to dinner last night, and we had a good talk about business stuff, and it was very good. Zendog Joe, we're probably not going to do charcoal soap just because so many other people already do it, and it kind of gets into the little teeny tiny cracks and crevices of showers, and it can kind of make showers look like they're moldy when they're not. And it's just working with charcoal. Any of you out there who have taken charcoal powder and you've experienced how poofy it is and how it just gets everywhere. Both charcoal is amazing. Charcoal is not going anywhere. But in terms of using it in cosmetic type stuff and all that stuff, we may still do something with it. We may mix it with some things that make it easier to, yes, it is poofy, Joe. It poofs everywhere. Sometimes I'm just trying to put a scoop of it in my flush, and it like poofs all over the counter. I can't stand it bothers me. And but Joe loves his charcoal. He doesn't want me to badmouth it. But yeah, Will, we can do that. I will work on that. So where were we going? We got more super chats. Yes. So I think CEW was the first one. Let me just make sure if Joe's Should there be a concern for using bleach/detergents on clothes and concern for clothing fabric on skin? Thanks, Dr. G. Okay. So, should there be a huge concern about it? Probably not. Most of it's getting rinsed out. Okay. However, somebody on Twitter, I was hit the books on Twitter with underscores between those words. _the_books. He was saying that he was using just baking soda in his washer, half a cup, and it was doing a good job of cleaning his clothes. I can say that, I mean, obviously baking soda, we use it to absorb odors, right? And isn't that that's usually like the biggest problem we would want out of our clothes. We don't want to stink. Somebody else added, I forget his name, added on Twitter that if you add, some vinegar to it, he said it's like a power wash. I don't know. The vinegar and the baking soda are going to react. So I don't know. People have done that before. I do think like big detergent is probably duping us and making us take in more toxins. I mean, I can tell you that even when people use boron in those washing soaps, I've seen it show up like off the charts on their hair tests. So they must have had boron residue in their clothes that they were pulling on over their head, and it was like leaving a residue on their hair over time. So yes, we are rinsing things. So yes, it should be getting most of it off. Is it always going to get all of it off? No. What actually Kelsey wanted to work on, like some more natural, she's going to work on a dish soap bar and a hair, like a shampoo bar. And I know a lot of you guys out there are really into, you want to find better cosmetic type stuff, better skin stuff. And so that's one of the things that Kelsey's going to be working on, that we've got her formulating for us. They'll probably be so popular that she wants to make it. I don't know if she's going to be able to keep up with the demand once it really starts going. So we'll just have to figure out somebody else to help if we need to. So I used the baking soda by itself on a couple of loads of clothes because I only had like one of those little like refrigerator boxes around. I didn't have the, gigantic bag of Costco Arm & Hammer. Oh, and there is no aluminum in baking soda, folks. There is no aluminum in baking soda. There can be aluminum as the main ingredient of baking powder. But the internet, in its Dunning-Kruger specialty, started saying that there's aluminum in baking soda. There has never been aluminum in baking soda. Baking soda can be part of making baking powder, if I recall correctly, but there's no aluminum in baking soda. Certain types of baking powder do have it. So if you're getting baking powder, make sure you read the label for the ingredients and that it says aluminum free. But baking soda does not have aluminum in it. So I used it, and in one of my shirts, it had gotten one of my shirts had gotten a very specific smell from whatever I was wearing it with when I was detoxing. And the baking soda in one wash, got 90% of that smell out of it. Clothes seemed fine. Like everything else seemed pretty normal about them. So I'm leaning towards baking soda as a base, as a foundation for clothes washing detergent, if you will. I think it's working pretty well. So that's what I got on that. If you want to try the baking soda and add a little vinegar to it, that's fine. I just don't know how much it's going to react and diminish the effects of either one. Because if you have them reacting and creating like oxygen or carbon dioxide and water, I don't know the exact reaction, but if they're just reacting to make oxygen and carbon dioxide and water or whatever it does, I don't know that that's going to clean your clothes any better than water. But yeah, yes, your detergents can come off on your skin. This is the crazy thing. When you go to a dermatologist and you have a skin issue, what's one of the very first questions they ask you? What do you put on your skin? What do you use to wash your clothes in? Because these things are applied to your skin long term. So the less toxic those things are, the better off you're going to be. And baking soda, I'm not worried about the residue from that at all. So, okay. Fernando asks, yo, Dr. G, is being a FOMO a form of toxicity? Okay, I want to make sure, Fernando, that we're talking about the same thing. When you say FOMO, you mean fear of missing out? Is that what you mean? Like, we're only going to live once, might as well just do whatever the heck we want, kind of like nihilistic kind of thing. Let's see. Well, it's kind of weird. Is being FOMO, I'm going to assume fear of missing out. Is that a form of toxicity? Well, people in the past, when they were less toxic, tended to look more towards the future and to plan more towards the future. So they were less toxic. People now are more toxic because it's been handed, besides what we have in our environment, it's been handed down to them. And now we have people, oh, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have children. It's very cynical. It's very negative. It's very like, why even bother to plan for tomorrow? We could die today. Or people who are like, when they see us doing health stuff and they're like, well, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. So what are you doing all this for? And I'm like, well, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And I like being healthy because here's one of the things I believe. And most of you have seen this. The healthier somebody is, if they get hit by a bus and they're going to recover, they recover fairly quickly. Somebody who is sick and just slowly gets, let's say they don't get hit by a bus and they just slowly get sicker. You just watch system after system fail and they're just suffering and suffering and suffering and suffering. And then you're sometimes as a friend of theirs or someone who loves them, sometimes you might even think in the nicest way of relieving their suffering, you go, God, kind of would be nice if you would just kind of croak already, because it's just suffering. There's nothing, they're not trying to help themselves. They're just popping pills all day. They're just complaining about their suffering all day. They're not actively trying to fix it. And then they'll tell you, trying to be healthy, well, what if you got hit by a bus? And healthy people recover from things like that quickly. Sick people die, or they start to crumble and then they just crumble down. I would much rather be healthy and be around for my kids, my grandkids, maybe my great grandkids, and have them one day, great grandpa falls asleep on the couch and doesn't wake up again. That's how I'd like it to be. I don't want it to be hooked up to respirators and in a hospice and all that stuff. That's part of why I'm doing it. It's not to be scared of death. It's to make the most of life while you're here. So, Will was saying charcoal is messy AF too. Yeah, charcoal is horribly messy. That's the poofing of it and then wiping it out of things. So let's see. So I do think FOMO, in a way, excessive FOMO, could be a manifestation of toxicity. Sure. I mean, it could be anxiety, right? Fear of missing out is anxiety, and we help people with that all the time. So fear of missing out would be anxiety, but in its very nature. Okay, so Jones 555. Oh, thank you for the super chat, both CE and Fernando and Will. I forgot to say that. Let me mark all these with my little hearts and my little thumbs up. So cute. Okay, Jones 555 said, I've heard people say that L-theanine has helped them gain weight. Do you know why this might be? As an undertype, this interests me. Okay, L-theanine actually, I forget which episode it was, but it was about things that chelate copper. L-theanine chelates copper. Copper toxicity is a huge part of liver problems. So, the other thing was that, like, okay, undertypes, there's a big pattern, and I'm not saying you have this. There's a big pattern of schizophrenics. Like I've asked EMTs this and paramedics this, and I'm like, when you run into schizophrenics, Are they overweight or underweight? And they're like, they're always underweight. They're always underweight. That's an interesting pattern. So just think of schizophrenia. I'm not saying anybody has that, but I'm saying like anxiety and depression would be a very early form of where that might progress to. So see, everything's like, people are always like, but anxiety and depression are not schizophrenia and they're not related. And I'm like, do you not see that the steps, like you see one small thing going bad and then another thing bigger going bad and then another thing bigger, and they can say, well, these diseases aren't connected. Well, no, they've just progressed into something else. But undertypes, if you were to go look into, let's say, schizophrenia, copper toxicity is huge in it. So if we see that schizophrenia tends to be associated with undertypes, and copper toxicity is one of the things, along with vitamin A toxicity. There's a paper with 3 separate lines of evidence showing retinoids as vitamin A as causal to schizophrenia. And vitamin A toxicity and copper toxicity always are like this. So how could theanine help somebody who was underweight? If we were to do that, like schizophrenia connection with underweight, connect copper toxicity to that, theanine starts helping the copper toxicity and we start seeing the improvement in the underweight. But I'm not saying anybody's schizophrenic. I'm just saying this is like, that's the way down the road where we see the phenotype, the expression of it physically, where the underweight is going along with the certain state of the brain that we associate also in the research with copper toxicity. So that's that. I'll have to go over on the live stream soon. Melatonin. Some people out there are like, melatonin is so protective and it helps us in so many ways and you should take mega doses of it. And then I go, have you seen all the research on melatonin binding copper? That's probably its main action in terms of helping people's health. Oh, and cancer. Cancer has been found to have huge amounts of copper in it. Oh, people go, melatonin's anti-cancer. I go, okay, no duh. And then melatonin helps you fall asleep. What does copper toxicity prevent you from doing easily? Falling asleep. Do you see the patterns? Copper is a major problem. Let me see. Joe sent me something. Okay, so we got 15 minutes. But that's the weight gain and theanine connection. I like theanine in general. Now I will tell you that some people in the Love Your Liver program, Hope and I think Sarah, they were taking theanine and noticed they have big copper toxicity issues, and they were taking theanine and noticing some benefit. And then they just tried, Hope did it first, and then she suggested Sarah do it. Hope is one of our practitioners, and they both just basically increased their muscle meat protein. And they said they didn't feel like they needed theanine anymore. So theanine is an amino acid. Ladies especially, you must eat enough muscle meat. I'm going to put out a number here. If you're eating red meat or poultry in terms of protein grams, I want you eating 50 grams minimum of protein, not 50 grams of meat, 50 grams of protein from muscle meat a day. This is about half a pound. Okay. I want you eating at least a half a pound of muscle meat total, not every meal, total a day. And you should check and see if you're hitting that, because if you're not, and you're wondering why your progress on the program is not going well, or why you just don't feel good in other ways, you need enough muscle meat protein. Many of the supposed vitamin deficiency diseases, as I've gone over on this live stream, are simply muscle meat deficiency. And a lot of you ladies out there, and possibly some of you guys, but definitely this happens with the ladies, you guys are like, well, I eat meat like twice a day. And even though you're eating meat twice a day, some of you are not getting to half a pound. Don't mess that up. That is the quickest thing and easiest thing to fix. Okay. So then we have Gianni says, hi, doctor. I've been using Love Your Liver for 2 years. Excellent results on various fronts. For a few weeks, I've been very reactive. Tachycardia, and that's a fast heart rate. Excuse me. And insomnia. Thoughts? Tachycardia and insomnia, especially. Okay, so I would say these are some generalities. First of all, I have learned multiple times, Like when I visit Kelsey or Kelsey comes to visit me, I fall out of my habit of having 2 bananas in the morning with my breakfast. I'm just having different things because somebody different is here. And then after a couple of days, I start going, why is my mood like not as good as it was? And then I'll remember, oh yeah, I'm not having, I was still having my potassium citrate in my niacin flush drink, but I go, oh yeah, I wasn't having the bananas. And then I'd have the bananas, and like the next day I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel back to normal again. So when I hear heart rhythm stuff, tachycardia, and if your insomnia is trouble falling asleep initially, those 2 things I would tend to think of potassium deficiency first. Whether it's during the day overall or whether you want to try more of it closer to bedtime. If the insomnia is more of the wake up like 2 to 4 a.m. type, then I would say that's probably magnesium deficiency. Oh, the other thing about not falling asleep. Okay. Trouble falling asleep initially. Copper toxicity, potassium deficiency, not eating enough food. That's a big one. Can't fall asleep. Maybe you didn't eat enough food. And dehydration. Could be any of these. Could be all of them. Could be a combo. Those are big ones. Waking up in the middle of the night can be blood sugar issues. I go over how to modulate this stuff in the hydration video in the network. Some people have told me that the hydration video is worth the entire price of the program. But waking up in the middle of the night can be the opposite of falling asleep or not falling asleep well. It can be too much water or too much fluids, and you're waking up having to pee. It can be the blood sugar kind of crashing in the middle of the night, waking you up. It can be a lack of magnesium. Yeah, might just need some carbs to help you fall. Carbs and salt, dry carbs and salt to fall asleep. And like I said, I go over all that in the hydration video. A high heart rate and insomnia. The thing that we must never throw away or disregard completely is stress. If you have had more stress, like this is, people will throw out the stress thing. Like, doesn't everybody realize that if you had a too big of a stressor, like all your hair could fall out. They've seen, this has been documented. Your hair could turn completely white or all your hair could fall out. Does anybody in the hair regrowth world really talk about stress? Not much. Shouldn't they be talking about stress? If it's the thing that like could cause people to lose their hair very quickly or just slowly over time. When you start learning about the scalp tension model of hair loss, then you start to understand how stress would play a role in it. Now, all these other things play a role in it. But sleep, stress is huge with sleep. So if you're having atypical stress, I can't change that for you. You're going to have to do things to work on that yourself. But that's a big part. Magnesium can help with your dealing with stress. Potassium can help with your dealing with stress, but it doesn't make it go away. Just a little tip. One big thing I've been working on lately myself, I've been doing lots of personal growth work lately, but one of the things I've been doing is like, if I feel a certain way, if I feel anxious or scared about something or whatever, I just kind of, and I got some of this. This is definitely, I want to give Beth Martin's credit for this. I may have heard this before her, but I did a couple sessions with Beth. She's great. And she was just saying to me, like, can you just be okay with that feeling being there? Can you just, yes, it's there. Can you just be okay with it? And I've used it several times now, and I felt a lot better. So yeah, that was a super simple trick. And now Kelsey's going to let me listen to the audiobook of, there's a book called Let Them. And I think that's going to be very useful too. So, but yeah, the tachycardia, insomnia, I would tend to think of, okay, so the toxicities that can cause this, I'm not moving my desk too much. My desk is shaking. The toxicities, copper toxicity, vitamin A toxicity, those take a long time to get rid of. If you all of a sudden started getting tachycardia and insomnia, first look at look back at when it started. Have you changed any of your supplements? Have you significantly changed? Go back and look at those. Have you done more agitators? Heat, sweating, exercise, more soluble fiber. Have you changed things that we know increase your bile production and dumping? Then we can look into the magnesium and the potassium and the hydration and the food and that stuff. So those are the areas that I would look into first. But I don't have time to diagnose each little thing here. But yeah, those are the things. And I would bet that you could find something in there that you have changed. Like if you increased your zinc before that 2 weeks started or something, all of a sudden you weren't sleeping well. Well, zinc kicks up copper. Zinc stirs up copper. So you can definitely mess with your sleep. Zinc can definitely mess with your sleep. Some people, they take zinc, it stirs up their copper, they feel more energized. So they take it in the morning because they don't feel bad with it. They just don't sleep well. So they take it in the morning, helps them with a little boost during the day while it's helping to get rid of their copper. And they like that. Some people, when they take their zinc, it kind of counteracts the copper and it protects them against the copper. And that helps them fall asleep because it reduces the copper's impact on their nervous system. So zinc is very I just tell people, if it makes you feel more awake, take it in the morning. If it makes you feel more tired, take it at night. As long as whatever else, if there's anything else that happens with it, you're okay with, kind of like the juice worth the squeeze? That's that. And then if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, reduce your dose until the negative symptoms are gone. And hopefully you're still getting some of the positive symptoms. Okay. Or positive benefits, I should say. Okay. But yeah, I would definitely look back at what changed when the 2 weeks started. Stress or other things that you might have changed, food or supplement wise. Okay. Okay, so let me see. Let me find the next one. Zendog, thank you for the super chat. He asks, is bile present in all cancers? I don't know. This was the wait, where's Joe's comment? I wanted to give Joe his heart and his thumbs up, but I can't find his comment. Did you make it go away, Joe? Anyway, either way, okay. Fernando was asking about FOMO and he wanted to clarify something. Fernando was potentially referring to also LGBT stuff in terms of could toxicity lead towards this. There's the atrazine in frogs research that was legitimate that you guys have probably heard of and is kind of the running joke on Alex Jones, but it's true. So you can look up the atrazine in frogs and the homosexuality connection there. There is a study on, I believe it's ibises, a type of bird, where the more mercury they had in them, the more homosexual behavior that was observed. Then we have, as I went over earlier, the vitamin A toxicity connection, where the mother was vitamin A toxic, had the male babies, and inside the male baby's testicles, they found some ovarian tissue. Now, think about this. There's a lot more men out there who are transitioning, okay? Men to women. And a lot of these men will state they feel like they're a woman on the inside. A mouse with ovarian tissue inside of its testicles, could it potentially feel it's a male on the outside and it feels like a woman on the inside? Are we actually seeing the physical manifestation of this? You tell me. But we have the research in mice. They're not going to do that research in humans and sacrifice babies to open up their testicles to look and see if there's ovarian tissue in it. So you're never going to get human research on that. Do I think toxicity affects this stuff? Yes, absolutely. But then the minefield that you open up is you're saying people don't want it, especially very sensitive types of people don't want anybody saying you're toxic. That's why this happened. They won't accept that because then you're saying they're broken, they're toxic. Could it be fixed? Possibly. I don't know. Is that a goal of mine? No. I would like to help, fathers to be and mothers to be less toxic so that their children are healthier. And I have a hard time believing that not wanting to propagate your bloodline or contribute people to the future of humanity, I have a hard time believing that that's healthy. So, is there potentially a research connection to that? Yes. Let's see. So actually, let me see, brain cancer bile PubMed, because I didn't see brain show up in the cancers. What in the world? Hold on. Why is my phone making that noise? Joe, I don't know why it keeps jumping up to your alarm. Oh, the time is up. Okay, yes. Let me do this one little last thing. Yeah, let's do this last thing, Joe, and then we'll be done. Okay, so here we are. Effects of bile acids on neurological function and disease. Well, your first question should be, how is bile getting up in the brain? Oh, well, I think you're going to get that answer. Where is it? What was the thing I was looking for? Hold on. Extrahepatic biliary obstruction. Let me search for that. Okay. Bile acids may also have neurological effects outside of neurotransmission, specifically in conditions where bile acids are elevated, which means cholestasis, toxic leaky bile, such as in patients with obstructive jaundice. Bilirubin in the blood is bile leaking in the blood caused by gallstones. Well, gallstones are created by toxic stagnant bile. There is inhibition or slowing down of hepatic glucocorticoid clearance that is significant enough to disrupt the HPA axis. This is your adrenal fatigue, folks. Adrenal fatigue is caused by toxic bile problems. Similarly, a suppression of the HPA axis has been demonstrated following bile duct ligation. That's when they tie off the bile ducts so that you basically blow out the back of the system. Like the pipes are blocked, so then they blow out further back and you leak bile into the system. So they're saying 2 ways that you could get quote unquote adrenal fatigue, if you will, would be you can just leak the bile. You can just leak the bile caused by a blockage in the gallbladder ducts by gallstones, or they could tie off the bile duct and have it leak backwards there. Your adrenal fatigue, folks, is not an adrenal problem. It's a liver problem. Okay, the mechanism by which extrahepatic, so that's outside the liver, so that's leaking toxic bile from somewhere outside of the liver. Extrahepatic bile duct obstruction leads to a suppressed HPA axis, involves an increase in serum bile acid levels, which are able to induce the opening of the blood-brain barrier. Do you know how big of a problem that is? Bile dissolves holes in things. Bile dissolves holes in your gut. That is leaky gut. Bile dissolves holes in your blood-brain barrier. That is stuff leaking into your brain that's not supposed to be there. It allows bile acids to gain entry to the brain where they can be taken up via the bile acid transporter ASBT, which is expressed in the hypothalamus, the H of the HPA axis. Once inside the neurons of the hypothalamus, bile acids, in particular TCA and GCDA, bind to and activate GR, leading to a decrease in the expression of corticotropin-releasing hormone, a key regulatory molecule of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. Furthermore, suppression of the release of corticotropin-releasing hormone from the hypothalamus after bile duct ligation surgery. So they gave them cholestasis, and it suppressed the hormone axis. It was alleviated or made better in rats that were fed a diet enriched with the bile acid sequestrant, the bile binder cholestyramine, pharmaceutical one. Don't use it. Charcoal does everything cholestyramine does better without side effects. Go look up the side effects of cholestyramine if you're thinking of taking it. It's a disaster. I had a woman who was on it for a long time. She knew that it was making her worse, but she also couldn't quit it because then she'd get worse that way. So she was stuck taking cholestyramine. She couldn't get off of it, but she didn't want to stay on it. Yeah. So, bile will eat holes in your blood-brain barrier. And then you have not only bile getting into your brain, but you have other toxins in the bile because the blood-brain barrier is to protect your brain against stuff leaking in there. If you don't know yet, the leaky gut problems are a bile problem, and the leaky blood-brain barrier problem is a bile problem. I just went over that. And I have a whole episode on leaky gut and SIBO that you can go and watch. Okay. So we are at the time limit. I got to go. Hope you all got to enjoy getting to see Kelsey here today. I had a great time having her visit. So anyway, we will see you all next week. We have 5 new products that we're basically like right at the final stages of it, getting the labels made and all that stuff. So they will be out soon. Don't email Julie. Don't email Kelsey about the soap. Don't email Julie about the soap. These things will come out as soon as we have them ready. And we will let everyone know because we want you to know. We're not going to hide it from you. We do not have lists of early notice people. Don't do that. We just don't do that. We tell everybody when it's ready. Okay. So I will see you all next week. Hope you enjoyed this show. Will, if you're ready enough to do if you have the research on the estrogen dominance and the progesterone stuff that you have, and you want to do that next week, we could probably do that. Okay. Joe just put up the link for the SIBO episode, leaky gut and SIBO. So I'll see you all next time. Have a great week. Thanks for all the super chats. And the websites, nutritiondetective.com is the main website. That's where you can find the supplements that we offer. We do things differently than everybody else out there. Cleaner stuff. We try not to add stuff if we don't have to at all. And if we do, we're doing stuff like organic brown rice flour and other things like that if we have to. Check out the magnesium lotion, the lactoferrin. We just got a testimonial on Twitter today about the lactoferrin. Anyway, we do unique stuff that you can't find anywhere else. Then we have consultations with myself or other practitioners. We have 3 other practitioners. Kelsey's one of them. And if you work with any of our practitioners doing the hair and blood testing to see what you need and what you need to work on, you can see any of the practitioners in the office hours. You get office hours, follow-up, support, troubleshooting for 6 months. And you can come and talk to me. Whoever you work with, you can come talk to me. You can talk to Kelsey. You can talk to Hope. You can talk to Nathan. You get access to all of it. We want you to succeed. So then there's also, if you want to join the Love Your Liver program, I will tell you guys this, the price is about to go up. I'm changing it from I'll just make the changes and we'll let everybody know, but it's going to go to a one-time fee. So, but the price will be going up for the one-time fee. So if you have somebody who's on the fence about it, they should join now, like ASAP. Don't ask me to extend this later. We're just going to do it. So anyway, that's that. Members.nutritiondetective.com is the Love Your Liver program. And then if you want to find me on Twitter, I am at NutriDetect, because I couldn't fit the whole name in there. So that's NutriDetect. So that's what we got. Oh, Joe put a link to my worldwide vitamin A toxicity epidemic thing. As somebody was asking me about kids, this one was like, why is feeding kids sweet potatoes and spinach and this other stuff in their baby food wrong? It's just food. And I'm like, if you go to see that thread, that vitamin A toxicity epidemic thread, the kids in it often had like the highest amount of vitamin A in their liver because they have the smallest liver, but we're giving them these super high vitamin A foods. It's causing problems. So we're still here. Remember, it's toxic bile paradigm from here on out. And you can remind me of it if I forget. And we'll just keep progressing forward. If you guys have testimonials, send them to us. Send them to Sarah if you know her email, or post them on the network, or send them to me on Twitter or whatever. And we'll read them here. We always do them anonymously. We don't ever use any identifying information unless you really wanted us to. But yeah, we love the testimonials. We love spreading the word. All of you people out there doing it yourself without sending me, I want you to understand this. If you're out there taking my information and you're getting better and you're helping other people get better and you're not sending me a dime, great. I'm doing this to get people better, and I still like to make a living and make good products. So, there's both. Oh yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers this month. That's my little goal. So if we hit the 30,000 on Twitter, we're trying to get to 10,000 here. So if you want to help us by spreading the word, do so. And we'll see you all next week. Bye now.